welcome back. Today we're gonna talk everything lacrosse. We're gonna have some morning coffee, my Mickey Mouse cup, sit down, go over the first and second round matchups of the NCAA tournament, and talk everything quarterfinal lax. Lots of surprises, lots of exciting games, and lots of lacrosse left to be played. Cheers, time to dive right in. Whoa. So if you dive right into NCAA.com, you can see all of the scores from this weekend, all of the first and second round matchups, and the quarterfinal matchups that are about to happen next Saturday. So for you guys who maybe missed some of the games because they were all at the same time, go back to ESPN, ESPN, BTN, ESPN. All of those sites have replays of all of these games. So anyone looking to learn and to watch the best lacrosse around, those two sites have access to all of that film that's still up and readily available. So we're going to talk about these 4 games as well as the second round games, the Sweet 16 games that got them there. Quarterfinal time is here. Let's go. So as predicted, I was very wrong in a lot of my first round matchups. So we're gonna go right down the line, talk about all of the 4 brackets, as well as preview the matchups for the quarterfinal round. So Stony Brook and James Madison in this first bracket ended up going to overtime, which I'm not really surprised with. Thought it was gonna be a close game. I predicted Stony Brook coming out on top. Got that one right. That's one of barely any. Stony Brook, Maryland. That game was really interesting. I was soaking wet, pouring down rain yesterday, watching that matchup. Stony Brook came out to a 4-0 lead and things looked a little scary. It was very Northwestern Big Ten final-esque start for the Terps. But Kathy Reese, as always, gave them a huge pep talk after that 4-0 run. And they ended up scoring, I believe it was 11 of the next 13 goals. So really, really impressed with them. They seem to be driving, moving well, broke down that zone pretty well. So Stony Brook is out after the second round. Maryland is in the quarterfinals. Moving down that, USC ended up losing to Denver. I had them beating Denver. That was another overtime matchup. So overtime matchups galore in this first round. Denver coming out on top. They then went on to play the winner of Jacksonville and Michigan, which ended up being Michigan. Michigan did really well in their first ever NCAA tournament. Had to face off against a tough Denver squad. And Denver is the only non-seeded team in this entire quarterfinal matchup, which is really impressive. So cheers to you. They played Michigan pretty tight. That zone, I think, was too much for Michigan to handle. I think their center for Denver, who's supposed to be one of the best in the country, was too much to handle for Michigan. And they moved on to the quarterfinals. So that'll be a Maryland-Denver quarterfinal matchup in College Park next weekend. Which is kind of cool for Coach Reese. She actually was the Denver head coach before returning back to Maryland to coach the Terps. So it's a bit of a homecoming for Kathy, and I think that's gonna be a great matchup. If Maryland can attack Denver's zone the way that they attack Stony Brook's zone, I predict Maryland will come out on top of that matchup. I think it's gonna be a relatively close game, so I'll go 14-7 Maryland, with it being pretty close at the beginning and then Maryland slowly starting to chip away. But who knows? Okay, this is where I basically got a lot wrong, but a lot right. Anyone's curious on my picks, you can go watch the original Bracket Buster Challenge, which there's like 50 contestants. So I have to print out all those brackets and tally up all the points, but so excited for everybody who is participating. It's gonna be a blast. So Penn and Georgetown, another overtime victory, beat Penn, which I thought wasn't gonna happen. Penn looked pretty strong to me in the IB tournament, but Georgetown was still riding the wave from their Big East championship. Taylor Gebhardt, I'm pretty sure, had 7 goals, which that's just putting the team right on your back. So Georgetown went on to play Syracuse in a very rainy, wet, mucky day. Those were like all of the games yesterday. Syracuse came out on top 14-8. Georgetown hung with them for a while. It was a 2-3 goal game for most of the game. But then probably that second half of the second half, Cuse started to turn on the Jets and did not want to let that quarterfinal berth slip away. So Syracuse is in one of the quarterfinals. They will be heading to Northwestern. So in that first round matchup in Evanston, ow, I just spilled coffee all over myself. Pause. Oh. Nothing like coffee on a white shirt and your phone to start your morning. Okay. And your brand new clean house that you just cleaned. We're back. Notre Dame beat Stanford 15-9, which I thought was gonna happen. Notre Dame, I had a long time after ACCs to get comfortable again and to really start gelling. Got a lot of time to rest. They came out on fire in that Stanford game. Never really looked back. Ran into a buzzsaw of a Northwestern team. Northwestern got out to an 8-0 goal differential in the first 15-20 minutes. The Irish didn't score until 9:50, I believe, left in the first half. So they went almost 20 minutes scoreless. And with a team like Northwestern that's so high powered, that's so fast and athletic, and who has an incredible goalie in Mallory Weiss, an 8-goal deficit is hard to come back from. Irish tried, they made it a 13-10 game, so they gave them a game after those first 20 minutes, fought their butts off in the last 40, but it just wasn't good enough. They got a little too far behind too early, and it was hard to chew back. So that leads to a Syracuse at Northwestern matchup next Saturday, which is gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be amazing. That is gonna be an aggressive, foul-heavy, athletic, draw-dependent game. They both have incredible goalies in Asa Goldstock for Cuse and Mallory Weiss for Northwestern. They both have great draw specialists. They both are fast, athletic. They play different kinds of zones and mans. They are not afraid to adjust. That is gonna be the 4-5 matchup that everyone is hoping for. That's gonna be the game to watch this weekend. If you're having to choose between all 4 games, if they're all at the same time, go watch that one. I predict, I think Syracuse is gonna win. They won in a 1-goal game earlier this year, 15-14. I think Emily Harrischuk has a bit of a chip on her shoulder getting the Tewaaraton snub. I think she's gonna put the team on her back. It'll be her against Lesotho. I think Harrischuk's gonna come out on top. We're gonna go 10-9 Syracuse. Okay, one side of the bracket down, one more to go. So now we're going into the UNC side of the bracket. Florida ended up beating Hopkins pretty handedly on that Friday night as predicted, and then gave UNC a bit of a run for their money. At the beginning, it was a blowout. UNC was really starting to chip away and extend their lead. Florida, like the team that I thought they would be, fought back, got within 13-11, ended up giving the last 2 goals away. So 15-11 was the final score. The Gators season ends early. Haven't been back to Final Four since 2012, I believe. So I know that will be a goal for the Gators next year moving forward. Carolina advances into the quarterfinals after that win and will play Virginia. So Navy ended up beating High Point pretty handedly. Actually had to take a bunch of Ubers to the High Point game because their bus broke down. There's a great story on that on social media. So ended up playing Navy ended up playing Virginia that Sunday. Again, it was one of those games where Virginia busted out to an incredible lead and then Navy started to chip away. That mentality, that strong work ethic and mental toughness that this Navy team has. They had a few more minutes. I think they could have gotten the win. But lacrosse is a time sport and they just simply ran out of time. It'll be another ACC battle, North Carolina, Virginia, 2 teams that are extremely close as far as geography and play each other all the time. So they know each other like the back of their hands. For Virginia, it's gonna be how do you stop Jamie Ortega and Katie Hogue. For UNC, it's gonna be how do you stop Shoemaker, Mueller, and Jackson, the three-headed monster from Virginia. So whoever kind of handles the top guns better, I think will come out on top. UNC is a force to be reckoned with in May. I have had plenty of experience playing them in Final Fours and national championships. They peak in May every single year. I think Jenny is gonna have them prepared and ready for this quarterfinal matchup. And I think UNC is gonna come out on top 15-10. So I think it'll be a closer game at the beginning, as all games are. But UNC, I think, has its sights set on Final Four weekend at Homewood. And I think we'll see them there. Isn't it so cute? Okay, and the last side of the bracket. So this is where BC is homed. Dartmouth lost to Colorado in that first round matchup. I had Colorado losing to Dartmouth, so I had that flipped. Again, that was a really close matchup, 13-16, Colorado coming out on top. Didn't get a chance to watch that game, but my guess is that the Colorado zone was probably just a little too much for Dartmouth to handle. So Colorado ended up playing BC. At one point it was 3-3 against the BC Eagles, and then Colorado unfortunately just couldn't hang on anymore. Sam Apuzzo went off, Dempsey Arsenault and Kenzie Kent went off. Is anyone surprised? No. And again, I think those three in particular have smelled Final Four weekend. They've smelled 2 national championship games the last 2 years and have fallen short. So I think they are ready to get back to Final Four weekend to avenge a loss in the ACC tournament and 2 national championship losses the years before. They will have to go through a tough Princeton team to get there. Princeton beat Wagner, sorry to me, I love you, pretty easily on Friday, and then went on to blow away from Loyola. So it was 9-8 Loyola at 9-8 Princeton at half against Loyola. Looked like it would be coming down to the end, a nail biter all the way through. Princeton ended up getting up by 5, 6, 7 goals. I can't remember the exact number. And then although Loyola fought back, again, it was one of those situations where it's a timed game and they ran out of time. I think they had momentum going into the end and just couldn't get it done. So one of my upsets did not happen. Both of my upsets did not happen in Navy beating Virginia and Loyola beating Princeton. So it's a 2v7 Boston College Princeton matchup for a chance to be at Final Four weekend. Boston College, I think, is just a monster ready to be reckoned with. I think they are so talented, incredibly well coached, so athletic, and just have too many people for Princeton to handle. Princeton, I think, is gonna give it a good run for a majority of the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if BC wins by multiple goals. I'm gonna say 17-13 Boston College heading to Final Four weekend. So it'll be Maryland, Syracuse, UNC, BC. Hopefully my Final Four picks end up being right and I can be accurate the rest of the way in. But we'll see. The beauty of lacrosse is that there are games to be played, games to be watched, coffee to be drunk. I don't know the word. I never know the word. Coffee to be had while we're watching. So happy watching. Go watch, go learn, enjoy rooting your teams on. And keep dreaming, because one day this could be you playing, and I'll be talking about you someday, hopefully. Bye.